Today is Saturday, April 5th. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams were supposed to spend just over a week in space. Instead, when the Boeing Starliner spacecraft ran into problems, they ultimately spent more than 9 months on the International Space Station waiting for a ride home. It was an unplanned extension that captured headlines and sparked questions. Now that they're back on Earth, we're hearing about the ordeal in their own words. We put together the most interesting parts of the recent NASA news conference where they reflect on the mission, what went wrong, and what comes next. While answering reporters' questions, they address who they say is responsible for the mission's unexpected turns, how they stayed resilient through months away from their families, and why they'd still fly on the Boeing Starliner spacecraft again despite the setbacks. It's an honest look at a mission that did not go according to plan, and the lessons they hope will shape what comes next. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday.
Where do you lay the blame for your Starliner test flight? Clearly, Starliner was not ready to fly when it did. Whom do you hold responsible for everything that happened?
There were some issues, of course, that happened with Starliner. There were some issues, of course, that happened that prevented us from returning on Starliner. And I'll start with me. There were questions that I, as the commander of the spacecraft, that I should have asked, and I did not. At the time, I didn't know I needed to. And maybe you could call that hindsight, but I'll start and point the finger and I'll blame me. I could ask some questions, and the answers to those questions could have turned the tide. So blame, that's a term, I don't like that term, but certainly there's responsibility throughout all the programs, and certainly you can start with me. Responsibility with Boeing? Yes. Responsibility with NASA? Yes. All the way up and down the chain. We all are responsible. We all own this. And we are, in this business, trust. You cannot do this business without trust. You have to have ultimate trust. And for someone to step forward and these different organizations say, hey, I'm culpable for a part of that issue, that goes a long way to maintaining trust. So we're not going to look back and say this happened or that happened and that person's or that issue or that entity's to blame. We're going to look forward and say, what are we going to use our lessons learned from this whole process and make sure that we are successful in the future. This is a tough business. The analogy about it is it's always a curvy road. It's never straight in this business. And minimizing those curbs and being systems and processes in effect to prevent some of these curves is what we have to do as we leave low Earth orbit and go beyond to the moon and beyond that. So we're going to look forward. That's the focus.
Would you guys go up on Starliner again?
Yes, because we're going to rectify all the issues that we encountered.
Yeah.
We're going to fix it. We're going to make it work. Boeing's completely committed. NASA is completely committed. And with that, I get on in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would agree. The spacecraft is really capable. There were a couple things that need to be fixed, like Butch mentioned, and folks are actively working on that. But it is a great spacecraft, and it has a lot of capability that other spacecraft don't have. And to see that thing successful and to be part of that program is an honor.
I wondered about the stranded narrative, and to what extent were you aware of that narrative, and has that been frustrating for you to have to address?
The plan went way off for what we had planned, but because we're in human spaceflight, we prepare for any number of contingencies, because this is a curvy road. You never know where it's going to go. We prepare for this. So we pivoted to all that training we did that we didn't think we needed to do, and a lot of people didn't think we needed to do, but we did it anyway, as we pivoted to this other preparation, and that is what makes human spaceflight, your human spaceflight program, special. It is hard, like I said, and preparing for any number of contingencies is what we do. It happened to be me and Suni involved in this, but it could have been any one of the astronauts. There's 40 or so of us eligible for assignment. It would have been any one of us that would have been in the same situation, or could have been in the same situation, and would have done the exact same thing that we did, because they would have gone prepared just like we did.
Is there any concern that your issues with Boeing may delay future projects, future missions? And what would you say to one of your fellow astronauts before they go up on another test flight?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think we all have alluded to it. There's lessons learned. And that's like a piece of hope, right? We're not just sitting here doing the same thing over and over again, and we're learning from every mistake potentially, or maybe a decision that we've made and how we could make that better and do better the next time. When we go to the moon, we won't have an International Space Station to maybe take a stop at. We really have to get it right. And because of our mission, I think that highlighted some areas where maybe we need to work on and get it right for our fellow astronauts. I think they're encouraged by that, right? You learn and you move on and you get better. And I think that's part of the learning process. It's part of the exploration process.
Could you perhaps talk about how difficult it was being away from your friends and family, particularly since you hadn't prepared for that?
Yes, I would say it was difficult. It wasn't in the preparation, but in my family, we talk about these possibilities. We discussed all of this. We never said we were going to be gone for 9 months, but it turned out that way. But the discussions we had, and it's not just discussions prior to the mission launch. This is the way we've trained our daughters from the time they were born, because, their dad isn't a unique occupation, right? This is not the norm leaving the planet. And they understand that. And they, again, use that term, pivoted and got on board, understanding that this is part of what families in these type of businesses do. And it's not just in human spaceflight. This is military, armed forces, police forces, all across all different types of occupations that are involved in the possibility of extended stays away. And we're not unique in that. And so they understand that. They have friends that have parents in other areas where they've been involved in similar type situations, and all of that came together.
First and foremost, we were always coming back, and I think people need to know that, and we're back to actually, share our story with so many people, because like you all mentioned, it's slightly unique, and there's some lessons learned to it, and part of that is just resilience and being able to take a turn that was unexpected and make the best of it. And I think that is the biggest thing that I want to pass down, particularly to kids who think that their life should be this straight arrow to what you want to do, and you're just going to get there. Well, sometimes it takes some turns, some rights and some lefts, and you just keep focused on your goal, and other doors might be open for you. So I think that's the biggest message.
Still ahead, you'll hear about the cutting-edge experiments they conducted in space, some that could lead to real-world health breakthroughs here on Earth, and their hopes for the future of human spaceflight, even in the face of growing political attention. And a quick note, you'll also be hearing from NASA astronaut Nick Hague, who worked with and returned home with Williams and Wilmore. That and more coming up. But first, a quick break for our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Huel. I know that you are super busy and you value your time, and that's at least part of the reason that you listen to The Newsworthy. So if you ever feel like you don't have time to make a meal or get healthy food that'll keep you going through your day, consider an option that takes no prep, no cooking, is just grab and go, and is under $5. Huel's Black Edition Ready to Drink is a perfectly balanced meal in a bottle designed by nutrition experts. I'm talking 35 grams of protein and 27 vitamins and minerals. It takes the guesswork out of healthy eating and the stress out of not having enough time. For me, it's all about having an easy, high-protein option on those especially busy days or trips, because I can even throw it in my suitcase if I'm traveling and I'm not sure when I'll be able to grab a meal. So give Huel's Black Edition Ready to Drink a try, because right now, new customers can visit huel.com/newsworthy to get 15% off your first order plus a free gift. That's HUEL, huel.com/newsworthy, and use my code newsworthy. The Newsworthy is also brought to you by OneSkin. If you're ready to both take care of your skin's appearance and its health, definitely give OneSkin a try. They know the purpose of skincare is not just to improve how you look, but to also optimize your skin's biology at the cellular level, so it's more resilient to the aging process. And while they do that, OneSkin also reduces the visible signs of aging, like lines and wrinkles. The mastermind ingredient behind it all is the OS1 peptide, which works at the cellular level. I appreciate that every claim is based on lab or clinical studies and documented on OneSkin's website, too. And I personally love the feel of OneSkin on my face. It's hydrating, but not too heavy, so it's perfect for everyday use, and it's simple. Founded and led by an all-woman team of skin longevity scientists, OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to help skin look, feel, and behave like its younger self. Get 15% off with the code newsworthy at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code newsworthy. And after your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them, so please support our show and tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you. Okay, now back to astronauts Suni Williams, Butch Wilmore, and Nick Hague as they describe their unique experiments and experiences in space.
What were the most out of this world and your favorite experiments or tech demos you got to be a part of on this mission? And for Williams and Wilmore specifically, did the extension of your mission create any new opportunities for experiments or research that was not originally planned for the expedition?
So while I was up there, we performed about 150 different experiments. Of those, the ones that you know the most about are the ones where you end up being one of the guinea pigs in the experiment. So there's about a dozen different experiments where we were doing things to me and seeing how my body adapted. Whether that was a vascular aging experiment where we're measuring how stiff my arteries get because life in space tends to manifest itself as accelerated aging. And so we can better understand how the human body responds to that and hopefully provide some treatments on the ground to help with problems that as you get older, you encounter. How our immune system works. Did a whole study on the immune system and how my body was responding. Life on orbit tends to suppress the immune system, and why does that happen? We're trying to understand that so that we can help design better treatments on the ground, but also understand how we can support crews that go deeper into space on longer missions. Probably one of the most shocking experiments. Butch and Suni got to watch me wire myself up to muscle stimulation pads and shock myself, and trying to figure out how do we keep our muscles strong when we don't have access to all the equipment we have on the International Space Station. Because as we go to the moon and on to Mars, that's a lot of extra mass, and if we can do it with smaller equipment, maybe that works. The side benefit of that is anybody that's been bedridden on the ground, that's also a treatment for how you can support somebody that's been tied to a bed for a long period of time and help keep them healthy. So there's a benefit directly to the ground. That's 3 of them. They're all interesting. And, I'm one of many subjects, and it takes years to get enough subjects to go through the space station to be able to generate enough data to draw some conclusions. And so that's why research up there takes a long time. But the value is clear.
There's some medications on Earth that work well with a certain age group, but the same medication doesn't work so well with another. So it's a capillary flow experiment to try to understand how that medication is flowing through our bodies, and maybe there's something we can figure out as to why those things are. And we're trying to figure that out. And that's very beneficial, obviously, to mankind, and may benefit some of our families one day.
We've each been able to do multiple missions to the space station. One of the things that I noticed was a dramatic increase in the complexity and the weightiness of the experiments that we were conducting this time around on the station since 6 years ago when I was last there. It just gives you this sense that we are in the golden age of the space station right now in terms of the return on investment and what we're able to do there. And it's not just focused on return to, benefit the Earth. It's also focused on enabling all those things that we're going to need as we go to the moon and on to Mars.
Yeah, I would add on to, it was over a decade since I've been up there last, and I was pretty excited about what was going on. There was a lot going on when we first got there. It was an honor to be working with Crew 8 and seeing all that they were doing and just trying to help them with their stuff. And then, being moving up to the prime spots for Crew 9 and Expedition 72 as we took on a lot of experiments ourselves as well as spacewalks. And what the space station is doing to help us in exploration is really encouraging, and it's exciting. I can't help also but talk about STEM. I mean, all of this is STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm hoping the work that we've done up there also encourages the next generation of kids to understand how important that is and how they can become involved. We did lots of experiments up there with kids and universities and companies, trying out new guidance, navigation, control algorithms and robots that were flying inside the space station, competitions, for example, for them. And that's pretty awesome that you can really touch and talk to kids on the ground as you're doing experiments up there, and they have their finger on the pulse of science experiments, and they can understand that and think to themselves, I could be part of this one day.
Have you been surprised by the continuing and intense interest in your space saga?
I would have to say yes, absolutely. It's interesting. We go and launch. We knew it was a little bit unique, obviously, first time flying on a new spacecraft. So yeah, that was interesting. But then life goes on up there. And I mentioned yesterday, we pivoted and we were International Space Station crew members, and we're doing what all of our other friends in the astronaut office do, is go and work and train and do amazing science experiments up on the International Space Station. So, I think you sort of get maybe a little bit tunnel visioned in what your job is. So, do your job type of thing, right? I think we were just really focused on what we were doing and trying to be part of the team. It's, again, an honor that actually people were paying attention. And I'm very thankful that people are paying attention. And, sometimes good news, bad news, it's just news, and it's good for space exploration, and that's what we're all about. Our mission, of course, building and working on the International Space Station was just awesome, and we all had the opportunity to do that. But we also have bigger goals of exploring our solar system, going back to the moon, going on to Mars, and to get people understanding that it is hard, it is difficult, and what we do up there is really awesome. And I think at least that we had a little bit of that came with the interest in this mission. And if we can perpetuate that and tell people a little bit more and have the opportunity, the forum to do that, I'm very thankful for that.
So your mission became unusually political. Given your experience, do you think other astronauts are going to get nervous that they could be caught in the middle of a political fight? And is there a point where, this starts to jeopardize safety of a mission when you start looking at all these politics that come into play? Thank you.
I think Nick's got some good insight on that.
Good job.
So the way I'd like to answer that is that when we're up there operating in space, you don't feel the politics. You don't feel any of that. It's focused strictly on mission. We are working as a part of an international team that spans the globe and works with half a dozen mission control centers spread around the globe that are talking in multiple languages, and we just figure out how to make it happen. And that's the magic of human spaceflight, is that we can focus on something so positive that pulls people together, and we've been doing that for a long time.
If you're interested in learning more about what exactly went wrong on the Starliner, be sure to listen to yesterday's news roundup. We describe a few more details that came out about how the thrusters failed and they even lost control of the spacecraft for a bit. We'll also link to the full NASA news conference that you heard from today. You can find that in today's episode notes on our website. And of course, as always, we'll keep you updated on all the day's news each weekday in our regular news roundups every Monday through Friday. So we'll be back on Monday to catch you up from the weekend in just about 10 minutes. Until then, have a great rest of the weekend.